Episode 100, Radio Free Innsmouth. I guess we're going to talk about one of my favorite bands today. At the Gates. Anybody remember At the Gates? They sound like this, probably? I mean, conventional wisdom is they basically invented melodic death metal. Certainly one of the first bands to play it. Very consonant riffs. Decent amount of thrash influence, but quite heavy on the melodic tremolo picking. And the very acrobatic drum work of, I think it was Adrian Erlandson. Daniel Erlandson's his brother. He's in other bands. There's a little thrash influence. So yeah, to most people, you say At the Gates, and if they know what the hell At the Gates is, they're thinking of something that sounds like that.
안녕하세요, 트와이스 지효입니다. 해보겠습니다.
Right you are. Originally, At the Gates sounded more like this back when they were signed to Peaceville. It was very strange, dark, chaotic. Some people called them pompous sounding. Actually, I think that was one of the Bjorler brothers said that he found their earlier albums to be very pompous and arrogant. I, however, as much as I like later At the Gates, I think my favorite stuff is still their early albums, and I know that's a very unpopular opinion nowadays.
I don't care what you people think of me.
So what changed? Well, on those first few albums they had Ulf Svensson, who went on to form Oxy Plagueouts, who were a very strange, almost unlistenably strange band, but also, the important thing to know about At the Gates is way back when, people from that band were in a band called Grotesque. It had Thomas Lindberg on vocals, you had Alf Svensson doing the guitars, the Bjorler brothers hadn't shown up yet, but also you had Christian Wallin, who I believe was the main songwriter, and as evil and chaotic as Grotesque was, I think a lot of that rubbed off on early At the Gates. Fun story about Grotesque, as we listen to some dank Bathory-influenced epic black thrash riffs. Eric actually initially wanted to sign them, and then they sort of reformed as At the Gates and got signed by Peaceville. And Digby Pearson was a bit upset about that because he really liked Grotesque, but he ended up signing their new incarnation At the Gates for their final album before they broke up, Slaughter the Soul. So I don't know, what goes around comes around maybe? This is what I mean, it's just really chaotic and evil. You can hear a lot of early At the Gates in this. Even if Christian Wallin was never properly in At the Gates, I think his shadow loomed large over that band. And of course also you have Alf Svensson cranking out his stereotypically strange guitar riffs. It's very chaotic. It feels like it's all about to fall apart. These riffs are just bending into each other. Very much from the Destruction school of multifaceted guitar riffs that have lots of bends in them. Which makes sense because they are definitely more of a black thrash band than a proper death metal band. Although they were considered death metal at the time. So, Grotesque dies. At the Gates rises from the ashes. What happens to Christian Wallin? Well, he forms his own band called Liers in Wait. To get an idea what they sound like, think back to the early 90s. What are like the two major focal points of death metal? You got the American stuff sounds like this. Not really melodic at all. Lots of blast beats, very heavy, old school thrash influence. Chromatic riffs, meaning it's not conforming to a conventional scale, it's all just notes right next to each other on the fretboard. Chaotic, loud, fast, blasphemous, and gory. Then you have the Swedish stuff, sounds like this. Yeah, it's more melodic, a bit more epic sounding. Song structures tend away from straight up chaos more towards these very almost soundtracky things. That was kind of the common way of doing European death metal at the time, and in Sweden in particular.
이번에 처음으로 우리 트와이스 멤버들 다 같이 여행 온 거.
Calm down, I know that there's exceptions. For instance, you have American bands like Autopsy that sounded quite a bit more European than their compatriots. These guys are from the 80s. They're in my top death metal bands. They're very European sounding, despite being from Los Angeles. They actually influenced a lot of European, both death metal with Entombed and such, and then even black metal. Darkthrone were big Autopsy fans. So you had exception bands on our side of the Atlantic like Autopsy, and then you had Swedish bands that were very much closer to the spirit of American style, very fast, chaotic, and chromatic death metal, which is where we find Liers in Wait and also Crematory. Of course, I'm talking about the crematory from Sweden, helmed by Urban Skit that sounds like this. It's not the gothic metal band from Germany, who I'm pretty sure sound more like this.
Oh no, there's no more Game of Thrones.
That's for little fellers, you fucking jerk.
Yeah, I know the German Crematory's first album was actually a death metal thing. I'm trying to make jokes here, god damn it. But anyways, you got your Swedish band Crematory, and then you have your other Swedish band Liers and Wait, who are very decidedly un-Swedish sounding, and in fact were one of the most chaotic and nasty bands of the time period, and even today when it comes to death metal. So we have Kristen Valen on guitars, as well as Johan Osterberg. And then literally a bajillion other fucking people were in this band. Even Thomas Lindberg was there at one point. Wait until you see who's doing vocals on this album. God. It's just nasty and chaotic and spooky. This was probably the craziest death metal got up until maybe like the first Nile album, which I think might have pulled influence from this. There's just so many fucking change-ups and weird things going on. They only ever put out this EP in 1992. On the spine of the CD, it says Pain, Death, Hate. And it's just all purple and it has a bunch of pentagrams all over the fucking place. Which fits with the nasty occult sounds we have going on here. Very twisty riffs. Might be able to compare it to a Molested from Norway too. Just in terms of how chaotic and strange it is. But these guys, as opposed to At the Gates, who considerably smooth out their sounds, Liers and Wait, the other half of Grotesque, got very much into strange stop-start transitions and mashing things together. Unfortunately, as I said earlier, this is the only thing they ever put out. It had fucking the guy from Therion on vocals of all people. You might have recognized him from those early Therion albums. But yeah, unfortunately, nothing else from these guys apart from a short EP.
Oh no, there's no more Game of Thrones.
But that's okay, because Osterberg and Valen were not done yet. So Liers and Wait, not terribly well known, cool Lovecraftian band name, but they're certainly more well known than another band that had the same members, only Kristen Valen switched to drums, but it's still the same songwriting style. They have an absolutely terrible name, Decollation. Which admittedly should be cool because it's an archaic Latinate term for beheading somebody. Kind of like how Slayer says a bassinate, the eyes that bleed. You think they're just making a word up, but then you look up a bassinate, it means you put out someone's eyeballs with a hot poker. However, as cool as the definition of decollation is, it sounds like a racist caricature of an Asian person trying to talk about putting ornaments on a goddamn Christmas tree. Really cool little album though. Horrendously under-recognized. I mean, it came out on Listenable Records. That's the same label that put out Immolation for years and like Aborted and stuff. You know, they seem like they should be a bigger deal than they are. Maybe it's because they had some pretty weird vocals. The song structures are even stranger than Liers and Wait. And they all took fucking weird, fakey, hammer horror-y faux British names like John Leslie, and wore like top hats and capes and shit in all the promo photos.
Boo! Haunted house!
You know, one wonders if the whole fake name thing didn't screw them over just because everybody was out there looking for work from these guys by their actual authentic Swedish names, which I think were something along the lines of
88.
oh yeah, weird triggered drums, but awesome riffs. Wow, look at those dank melodies. Suck on that, At the Gates. I'm just kidding, I like At the Gates. I've talked about how much I like At the Gates, but these guys are way weirder and more chaotic. As evidenced by stuff like this. Strange change up out of that melody. Oh boy, the vocals. The vocals are very Barney Greenway-ish. They probably shouldn't have gone for that, but the music makes up for it. Oh, it's so weird, the stop-starty stuff. You didn't hear this over in Sweden. It's almost like weird melodic suffocation or something. There's a good fucking evil sounding, almost black metal riff. And some dank Dave Lombardo ride cymbal work from Kristen Ballin. Nowadays, he's mostly famous as an album artist. I mean, he drew the cover for this, obviously, but he did the covers for, like, the first Emperor album, both of the old famous Dissection albums, tons and tons of stuff. But he was in bands, and he was a big part of why early At the Gates sounds way different than later At the Gates, because he wasn't around anymore, so they went in a very, very different direction. You can get Grotesque as a split CD with the first At the Gates EP. I think that's actually the easiest way to get both of those albums. Liers and Wait might have gotten reissued in like the mid-90s. Decollation is literally fucking impossible to find. I own all of these on CD. I think Decollation actually did get some sort of like 12-inch vinyl reissue, because I've seen the cover for it before, but I don't know. Hopefully you can at least find MP3s of these fucking things, because as much as I enjoy At the Gates, the sort of weird cocoon that they cast off made some very interesting music in their own right, and I will leave you with that and see y'all around. Hopefully the next group of wide-eyed youngsters looking to recreate Scandinavian death metal will listen to those zany albums instead of just ripping off Entombed all the time.
I live my life like